Okay, first we're going to examine a quote from Keith Neumeyer in a interview he had. He said, "In addition to this currency moves, the mining industry has improved itself quite a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, out of necessity, obviously." Well, I want to talk about this a little bit. The reason why the mining industry has improved itself. One of the reasons is gasoline prices and diesel prices have fell. This helps lower costs. The next thing is the mining industry was mining in areas in the silver and copper mines and stuff where the yields of the ore was greater. When the silver price and the price of these other base metals like copper fell, what they had to do to preserve their mining operation, they did the same thing a person does when they're freezing to death. The heat uh, goes to the core of the body, and essentially the mine does exactly the same thing. What they do is they take their area where their ore is the highest grade, and they mine that particular region. So, with this in mind, we'll read Keith Neumeyer's statement again. He says, in addition to this currency moves, the mining industry has improved quite a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, out of necessity. Now you picking it up? What they're doing is they're mining the higher grade ore. They're cutting back, they're laying off employees, people that are slackers, and they're hiring their best people. They're getting rid of mining equipment that is needs a repair. They're shutting down parts of the mine. They're pulling in, they're drawn in so that they can turn themselves into a money making operation during these hard times. The mines do not want to go out of business. It costs them more to go out of business than it does to stay in business. So they'll try to stay in business at every available opportunity. And so he goes on to say, the miners are resilient. We do not often, sometimes in a bull markets, go out on spending sprees, and that's exactly what happened in the bull market he's talking about. A lot of debt was accumulated, and marginal assets were bought or purchased or brought into production. That is now open and unwound. The balance sheets of mining companies are in a much healthier position today. It means what he's telling you is they've cut off the fat. They're in a much healthier position today. First Majestic, for example, now he's talking about First Majestic, got more cash in the bank today than it has ever had in the history of the company, and it has been in business for 15 years. So the profits are coming in the door. Not that silver at $16 is exciting. You see what he's saying here? He's trying to tell you, in not so many words, that silver at $16 does not have a high profit margin. Listen again to what he says. He says, not that silver at $16 is all that exciting. Exciting is profits with these men. That's what's exciting. And he's saying that it's not exciting. In other words, the profit margin's small. Nevertheless, he says, we're making money at $16 an ounce. In other words, he says, even though the price is low on silver, we're still making money, but not much. He says, I can tell you clearly, 4 or 5 years ago, if silver was at $16, we would have been losing money. You see? So what he's telling you here is by trimming the fat off of their companies, by working the more profitable veins of ore, they've been able to reduce costs, slash costs, so that they can make a very small profit at $16. That's what he's telling you, more or less. So I think we've done a great job in reducing our costs, and then the miners across the board have every dollar made a huge difference, particularly for First Majestic and other larger companies. He says if you're into producing 20 million ounces of silver a year, an extra dollar an ounce, that's 20 million extra dollars. So they're working with small profit margins. Now, for these people out there who say, okay, silver's going to drop down to $8 an ounce. Well, if it does, first off, there's going to be people in there hauling the truck in wanting to buy physical silver at $8 an ounce. It's going to disappear so quick, it's going to be like spit on a hot stove, the physical silver. The second thing about that is if it drops down to $8 an ounce, these miners are going to be below cost, way below cost. They're going to shut down even the high profitable parts of their mine where the ore is profitable. They'll even shut that down. So what $8 an ounce silver would mean if it did happen, and I don't think you're ever going to see it, what that would mean is a silver shortage. And then you would see vastly higher prices. So for these people that are waiting for $8 an ounce and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to buy some, forget it. Okay, so this is what's going on with this. So now let's talk about JP Morgan. JP Morgan has been working a silver buying, maybe I could call it a frenzy, almost like a shark biting at bait in the water. It's just he's been gobbling it up, the physical. How they've been doing it is they're in control over the paper shorts. And so what they're doing is they're taking and they're creating tremendous amounts of paper silver, what's called shorts, naked shorts, because they don't have, well, they actually, that's misnomer, they don't have the physical. They do have the physical, but they're not going to give you the physical for the naked shorts. So what they're doing is they're buying in on the physical side. And of course, what's going to happen when they start this buying frenzy of physical and putting it away in their warehouse, stockpiling it, what happens is price goes up. So the price goes up maybe 40 cents today, maybe 25 cents a day after that, maybe 20 cents a day after that. Everybody says, oh, we're back into a silver rally. No, it's them buying silver and putting it away in their warehouse. And then what happens is when the price starts to get up to a certain point, then they dump a whole bunch of physical short contracts on the market, paper silver. And the price falls like a stone. It falls the exact amount that it went up a few days before. And it goes back down to the same level it was at. And then everybody's disappointed. They're like, back down, And so then they start buying again. It goes back up again. So you see these swings. A swing, say, between, just say, like 15.50, and then it goes up to like 17, and it drops back down to 15.50 again. We see these swings, but they don't drop it lower than they know. Like this Keith Neumeyer guy here. They don't drop it lower than he's talking about his cost and what he's been making a very small profit margin. They know enough not to drop it below that. And then they come in and they buy. And they're buying it so cheap that it's just barely above where the miners can just make it, right? And so they know exactly what they're doing. And they've been hoarding that. And they've got in excess of 550 million ounces they've put in these warehouses. But I'm thinking personally it's probably closer to 1 billion ounces that they put away for themselves. They're not going to let you have this silver for your short contracts for these cheap prices because this is the price they want to buy at. They're not going to sell you for the price that they're wanting to buy at. Because I'm going to tell you straight, these guys want to make a minimum of a 10-bagger on the silver that they're putting away on that. It's probably a billion ounces of silver, and they want to make a 10-bagger on it. And they want to make 10 times the profit that they've paid for it. And so, and they're probably really thinking a 20-bagger. And so they paid, they're probably cost averaging, they're probably working in at just under $20 an ounce. And so a 20-bagger would be 20 times 20. Well, let's just, we got a calculator right here. Let's just see what that would be real quick. And we're probably looking at your silver price that you're going to see. okay, so let's just say cost average, and let's say they started buying it, purchasing it was quite a little bit higher, and they've purchased it a little bit lower than what it is now, and so probably average a couple dollars higher than it is right now. So let's say 18 cost averaging, and let's say they got a 20 bagger. 20. So let's see, 18 times 20. No, that can't be right. I think it's 648 bucks. Yeah, I added one extra 18. Yeah. So let's just clear this and do again. We'll do 18 times 20. Yeah, 360 bucks. That sounds about right. So what we're probably looking at is if they make a 20 bagger, we're looking at $360, and if they make 15 times, we're in that ballpark, way over triple digit silver is what they're looking at, and they're not going to sell it until they get that kind of profit. So what you're going to see, this is what you're going to see. When the short squeeze comes, JP Morgan is going to drive the silver up with the same intensity and the same type of vigor that they use to manipulate it down. They're going to drive it the other way. And what's going to happen is it's going to go up and up and up and up and up until it hits a point where they've satisfied themselves that they can make a really good profit ratio. Then they're going to dump the stuff. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a spike up in the silver to a peak when they start to dump it. And then they're going to dump a huge volume on the market. It's going to go down like a rocket. See? And then all of a sudden, the people are going to say, all these buyers are going to come in. They're going to roar back in. And then she's going to level off, and she's going to do a little dead cat bounce. Then another voluminous huge sale into the market. She's going to go all the way back. She's not ever going to come back down to what it is now. Forget that. It ain't going to happen. But it's probably going to peak at maybe, I'm going to guess, $3.60 an ounce. Okay? And then she's going to come back down to about $300. That's going to be on, and then you're going to have your, no, a little bit lower. Let's say $2.60. Come back down to $2.60. And then you're going to have your little dead cat bounce. It's going to go back up to about $300 or $2.80. Then look out, boys. She's on her way back down to $35 after that. So, and by the time she gets back down to $35, the government is going to have their, they're going to have their windfall profits tax in. They'll have it in place. So then when it gets back down to $35, if you try to sell any, the government's going to hit you with a 90% windfall profits tax. It'll take almost all of it. So it's useless. And you're only going to have, probably when the thing goes up to the heights, the stunning heights, the only boys that are going to be able to sell at those prices are going to be the guys that manipulated it in the first place. Because it's probably only going to stay at those prices for maybe 10 minutes. So if you're up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., and if you've got the right kind of equipment to sell into that market, then maybe you can make a profit, but they're going to make the profit and you're not going to get nothing. Because when you wake up the next morning, it's going to all be over. The whole thing. You're probably not going to get in on any of it. It's going to be so fast. Because they're going to buy and sell this that quick. And so, anyway, not trying to discourage, but that's the way these guys do it. They've always got an angle so that they're going to cut you out. Because that's the way they do work. That's the way they work. That's why they're rich, and that's why they're the 1%, and that's why we're the 99%. We're down in the hole in the ground with sweat pouring out of our forehead, and that's why they're up on top with the whipping our backs. And the thing is if what they don't want is us to get smart. If you've watched Star Trek, you remember there used to be an episode where there was the cloud dwellers up in the city, and they had these other guys, these other poor sluggos down in the mines, and they called them troglodytes. And they wouldn't let the troglodytes wear a mask because there was a gas in the mine, and when they breathed the gas, it numbed their brains. And they could never get smart enough to the city dwellers were always able to take advantage of the troglodytes because the troglodytes couldn't think straight because they didn't have masks. So Captain Kirk, he came down there and he saw what was happening, and he wanted to give the troglodytes masks so that they could think straight. And as soon as they started to think straight, then they were able to break free from this manipulation. So anyway, so J.P. Morgan, he's got his vaults full, and he's filling them up more and more, and he's going to fill them up until he can't get away with this anymore, until there's not any physical left, and all there is a bunch of paper, a big pile of paper. That's all there's left. He's got all the physical. It's because mining production is going to be dropping off rather sharply because there's a delay here with the with a lot of silver is a byproduct of other metals like copper and zinc, and there's a delay here. The cheapest prices on copper and zinc were a few months back, and this delay is it's going to hit the silver market, and it's going to be a drastic drop off in the mining production. This is what I'm expecting. Probably within the next 6 months is a large drop off in the mining production. And the world has a set amount of silver it uses every year for industry. And what's happening is they need that amount. I believe it's like 600 million ounces a year. I think total mining production is 800 million something. And so then there's also investment buying. And the investment buying has been going like this, up. And the industrial use has been remaining fairly static or steady. So there's been a deficit. And of course, when mining production drops off, and I'm expecting probably, I don't know, I'm just going to guess, say 20% drop in mining production next year when the numbers come in, that's going to create a much larger deficit. And at some point, we're going to hit a point where that deficit and the increase in investment grade, all of a sudden it's going to happen. There's going to be a shortage in the 1,000-ounce bars. That's what to look for. Don't look for a silver shortage in the coins and stuff like that. That's a waste of your time. The real trigger part is going to be when there's a shortage in the 1,000-ounce bars. That's when your shortage is going to occur. And Morgan is going to time, that's when he's not going to be able to get more silver, so he's going to switch at that time. And rather than accumulating, he's going to switch into manipulating the price higher. So that's when he's going to want to make his profit, his 10-bagger or 20-bagger. And so that's the time when she's going to shoot up, and that's the exact time that the government's going to come in with their windfall profits tax, just slightly thereafter. But these guys are in there, and they're looking to take a bite out of that. So so that's it on that aspect of it. Okay, that's what I got to say about that.